Hi, this is Wasabi. Hope you're doing well. And today I want to talk about Ubisoft video games and the fact that we don't really own anything anymore. Or, well, that's the way things are going. So you may or may not have heard about yesterday Ubisoft confirming that if your account has been inactive for a certain amount of time, let's say, I don't know, 30 days. That's not 30 days. We'll read that in a second. But if your account is inactive for a certain amount of time, then they'll just delete it. They'll shut it down. They'll close it. And guess what? You just lost all the games that you paid money for. And to be honest, that's really shitty. That's awful. That's trash. So this is the post that started making waves a couple days ago. Pretty much says from Ubisoft, hey, we noticed that you have not been using your Ubisoft account associated with the email address. We have temporarily suspended your inactive Ubisoft account and we'll be closing it permanently in 30 days in accordance with our terms of use. If you wish to keep your Ubisoft account, you can cancel this closure by clicking on the cancel button below. And that was pretty much where things started going around. People were like, oh my God, what the fuck? How is Ubisoft going to be able to do this shit? It's not fair. And I mean, to an extent, I agree. It's wild to think about that the games that you purchase digitally could potentially just be gone. They might just vanish. You know, Thanos snap away and they're just gone and you can't access them no more. Money that you paid for, goods that you paid for. Now, I know the argument can be made that anything that you buy digitally isn't really something that you own. It's not something that you keep. I know it's something that people bring up when it comes to games that you own on Steam. You pay money to use and access those games, but you don't pay to actually keep them forever. It's pretty much as long as the service is up and can keep on running, then you have access to those games. But if those services shut down, then you lose all access to those games permanently. Now, I do want to say that I am aware that there is a bunch of different posts that have been made throughout the years when someone has asked Valve or even Gabe Newell himself what would happen if Steam shut down, and one of the responses was, hey user, thank you for contacting Steam support. In the unlikely event of the discontinuation of the Steam network, measures are in place to ensure that all users will continue to have access to their games. If you have any further questions, please let us know. We will be happy to assist you. Now, whether or not they can actually make that a reality, and if Steam shut down, they just make you have access to all your games, I find that highly unlikely, especially considering De Novo exists. So maybe, and because this post was made back in 2013 before that was even really a thing, maybe times have changed. Maybe they still got a way for it, but I don't see it being possible. And to further clarify my point that I was talking about the games that you own on Steam, you don't really own. This is from Steam's own subscriber agreement. It says, as a subscriber, you may attain access to certain services, software, and content available to subscribers, or purchase certain hardware as defined below on Steam. The Steam client software and any other software content and updates that you download or access via Steam, including but not limited to Valve or third-party video games and in-game content, software associated with hardware, and any virtual items you trade, sell, or purchase in a Steam subscription marketplace are referred to in this agreement as content and services. The right to access and use any content and services accessible through Steam are referred to in this agreement as subscriptions. So unless I'm reading this wrong, and correct me if I am wrong, the way that I view this is they say that you have access to use these things. You can obtain access to use these things, but you do not have ownership. It does not say that you own, that it is yours to keep. It is just so that you can access to use the content that you purchase. That is it. Nothing else. And so that's kind of like the argument people make, is that you're not really owning the game. Like, you own it, but you don't really own it, which I guess that's a fair point that can be made, but still it doesn't make it any better. It's not good. It sucks. You should be able to own the games no matter what. And then on top of that, you have DRMs such as De Novo, which is another DRM that goes on top of games to try and prevent piracy, to make it harder for people to crack games, which is actually the case. It actually does work, but it does work for what it was made for, which is why a whole bunch of developers use it every time a game comes out. And the fact that only one person literally cracks all De Novo games at this point, and they're a madman for even doing that, and the fact that they do it like once every couple months. So yeah, there's a reason why developers keep using this, because obviously it's work. But the biggest downside to that is game preservation is just pretty much dead when it comes to things like that. If you cannot crack that DRM, then you will never be able to preserve that game. Think about all the things that you play from GameCube, Game Boy, PS2, PS1, all the games that were on CDs that were pretty much can be run on an emulator. If you had DRM attached to that and you can't crack it, then you can never play those games again. Because you get situations where it's companies like Nintendo who don't give a fuck about actually porting all their old games onto modern hardware, or they're stuck in the dinosaur age where they give you maybe they sprinkle a couple games onto their shitty online service that if you pay their little monthly subscription fee, oh wow, now you can play games from the Game Boy era. Oh shit, maybe you can play games from the Super Nintendo. You can play Nintendo 64 games, you know, shit like that. But then a lot of the other games that were available on there, they won't let you play it all because they just don't care. They don't feel like porting it, and they're just stuck behind the times. And that's one of the many reasons why people hate De Novo. Yes, you can sit there and attach maybe performance issues. I can't really confirm or deny that. I think it's really a case-by-case basis depending on the game that uses it and how it's implemented, but I can't say for a fact that it's not good. Regardless, there are activation limits. Let's say you got multiple PCs. If you try and use the game on one system and then you try and switch it to another one, then you might get locked out. They'll sit there and say you've activated too many computers within a certain amount of time. So if you do benchmarking or you run like a YouTube channel where your whole goal is to test different rigs out for games, then you're fucked on that front. There's a lot of reasons why it sucks, but I just want to give a little information just in case you don't know what Denuvo is or why people hate it so much. That is pretty much the idea of it. And so Ubisoft saw this message. They replied back by saying, hey there, we just wanted to chime in there that you can avoid the account closure by logging into your account within the 30 days since receiving the email pictured and selecting the cancel account closure link contained in the email. We certainly do not want you to lose access to your games or accounts. So if you have any difficulties logging in, then please create a support case with us. And then they link to their URL for help. I get it in a sense. I mean, it's a PR response, but in my opinion, if you don't want people losing their accounts or you don't want them losing their games, then why don't you have a better implementation set up so that something like this can't even happen to begin with? I feel like if you paid money for your games, then your account shouldn't even get closed. Now, maybe I'm naive in how all this works, but I would think that if, let's say you spent no money on your Ubisoft account and you don't use it at all, then yeah, it should get closed. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. It's useless. You haven't spent any monetary money on there, so there's no reason to keep it active. But if you pay money for your games, let's say I bought 30 games and I don't know, I think a good point someone made in a video I posted earlier, they said, what if you get into a coma? And then you wake up and then you find out your account's been deleted. You lose all your games. Obviously, it's a rare circumstance. The chances of that are probably not that high, but it's still a circumstance that can happen. Let's say the internet shut down for years or some shit. There's a wide range of things that could happen that you don't know about. It might be very select cases. It might be very, very rare circumstances, but it can happen. There's no reason for an account to go away if you spent any form of money. But that's just my personal opinion. Now, I don't really rely too much on Twitter's little fact checker things. It could be good, it might not, I don't know. But there's a box right here that says, for added context, Ubisoft can be required under certain data protection laws such as GDPR to close inactive accounts if they deem the data no longer necessary for collection. Ubisoft has claimed that they don't close accounts that are inactive for less than 4 years. So following that, if it is true, I guess 4 years is better than nothing, right? I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone was under the guise that there is a certain time frame before you would get that email. But personally, for me, I don't think that your account should ever be closed at all. There shouldn't be any time frame unless the entire service shuts down. I don't think your account should vanish into thin air. I don't think that's right at all. Whether or not you get 4 years or not, and whether or not someone wants to make a comment, well, if you haven't used your account for 4 years, then maybe you just don't care about it no more. Dog, there's so many things that can go on in people's lives that you don't know about. Maybe they just sit there and just quit gaming for a long time, but they wanted to come back one day. The point is, if you spent money for something, you should not have it get taken away from you just because you decide not to use something for a certain amount of time. No matter how long that time frame is, as long as the service that is running is able to keep their servers up, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to access your games. There are people who go back in time that want to play shit when they were from 20 years ago. I'm already calling it now. There's going to be a circumstance 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and let's say Ubisoft still exists. There are people who are going to want to go back and let's say they want to relive the memories of Assassin's Creed 2. Let's say there's no remastered versions anymore. Let's say the IP dies and they just don't care about it no more. Obviously, that's very unlikely, but let's just say in this world that it does happen. Or Splinter Cell, right? Let's say we didn't have the CD versions for the PS2 or GameCube, whatever systems that those games came out on, right? Let's say you can't access them no more because they were never on CDs and you only had digital versions. And growing up, those were your only favorite games, so those are the only games you were willing to play from Ubisoft. But now you get nostalgic and you say, you know what, I want to play those games again. And then you try and log in, it says, guess what? Your account's been deleted. Too bad, so sad, bub. But yeah, I just want to talk about this because it's shitty. I know that you can sit there and say for a lot of digital services that this is just the normal, that, you know, it's to be expected, but it shouldn't be the normal. It shouldn't be. When you purchase something digitally, you should be able to own that shit completely all the way through. It shouldn't be a situation where, let's say you bought a game on Steam, but then it has Denuvo on it, and then you go offline and you can't play it no more because it can't check with the internet. No, I paid money for it. I should be able to play it. I bought a game on that PS5 back there. My console that's not connected to the internet, guess what? I can still play it. That's how it should be on PC. I don't give a fuck about piracy. It's not my concern. It shouldn't be my problem. Developers should just sit there and have a good service, have a good price for their games, not have it infused with a whole bunch of microtransaction bullshits so that they can sit there and try and milk as much money out of you as possible. You shouldn't have that. Just make a good game that people want to play. It's that simple. Don't sit there and try and milk people as much money as you can out of them, and then because you know people are going to hate that shit and they're going to have to use cheat tables and all this other shit, that now you make it a online service only for single player. Diablo 4. before make you connected to online only so that you can't cheat around things or play the game the way that you want to, where it doesn't affect other people. But I ranted on long enough. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because it sucks. Ubisoft, go fuck yourself. I know this happens to everybody, but because you're the flavor of the month, go fuck yourself.